Alright, so today I got what might be the weirdest story time on the channel so far. It's about a kid who thought he was Jeffy and did some very questionable things at the park. This was sent in by a subscriber, and I instantly knew the second I saw this DM that this was a must-tell on the channel. I figured you guys would really enjoy this one. So yeah, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story time, boys. Anyways, now I'm assuming most of you know who Jeffy is, right? You know, this guy. Somehow, if you don't know who he is, just watch a single video on the SuperMarioLogan or SML channel, and you'll be caught up very quickly. Alright, so the subscriber who sent this in, I'm gonna name him Matt for this story. Now, this apparently took place about like a year ago when Matt was like 12 or 13 at the time. So one day, Matt and like two of his friends, who I'll name Bill and Will, they were hanging out and they decided to bike to a park in his neighborhood to, like play some soccer. They thought it would be pretty fun to hang out at a park and just play a little soccer, Like soccer is a pretty fun sport. It is usually really enjoyable hanging out at a park with your friends, at least from my experience. However, one thing that you can't really control is who else is going to be at the park when you're there. You could end up having the park all to yourself, which is usually like the best possibility. There could also be a few other people there who just, like mind their own business, keep to themselves, and, like let you do your thing. Not the best case scenario, but certainly not anything too bad either. However, there is one potential outcome that would not be as nice, and that's if there's someone at the park who doesn't really look like they'd be someone you want to interact with. For example, there might be a kid poking dog poop with a stick, or someone could be punching a slide for no reason. Those are typically the type of people you don't really want to see when you go to a park to relax, and it turns out when Matt, Bill, and Will arrive at the park, that's the kind of person they encounter. Anyway, so they get to the park, right? And they see that there's only one other kid there who was on top of the play structure. And the first thing that they noticed about him is that he was wearing a blue bike helmet. And they thought this was odd because they didn't see any other bikes at the park other than the three that they arrived on. So they didn't quite understand why he was wearing a bike helmet if he didn't have a bike with him. Usually, when you're wearing a bike helmet, it's because you're riding a bike or doing a similar activity like riding a scooter or a skateboard, but this kid didn't appear to have any of that kind of stuff with him, so it's extremely confusing to the three friends. Maybe he's just really scared of a concussion, who knows? If that's the case, hey, I completely get it. I've had 2 concussions myself, they're not very fun to have. Anyway, so Matt and his buddies decide that if Helmet Kid doesn't bother them, then they're not gonna bother him, so they kind of just leave him alone, give him his space, which is 100% the right mindset in the situation. Yeah, it might be a little weird that he's wearing a helmet for no reason, but if he's not doing anything, then there's no point to really, bother him? So the boys go to another part of the park, right? And one of them grabs a soccer ball out of his backpack, and they're prepared to start playing, but that's when they hear a voice shout out, "What doing?" Which they instantly think is, pretty odd, usually it's, "What you doing?" or "What are you doing?" Something like that, not simply, "What doing?" But Matt realizes that he had only ever heard that phrase from one certain YouTube channel, and all of a sudden the blue bike helmet made a lot more sense. Now at this point, they're closer to Helmet Boy than when they initially saw him, and when they turn to look up at him, they see that this kid, in addition to having the bike helmet, also has a pencil up his nose, which mean, that's just pretty gross. Don't put pencils up your nose. It's really disgusting, just, don't do it. And at least the pencil on the nose kind of confirmed it for Matt, as he realized that this kid on the play structure was pretending to be Jeffy. Alright, I'm gonna pause the story time for just one moment. If you got a story that you want to send in, DM me on Discord or Instagram. The links to both are in the description. Now let's get back to the story time. Anyway, so Matt and his buddies can clearly tell at this point that, oh, this guy's pretending to be Jeffy. That's kind of odd. So they're all staring at him, kind of in shock. But Bill full out laughs and says to the kid, "Bro, why are you trying to be Jeffy? That's really weird, dude." Now, I feel like that was a little bit unnecessary. Bill didn't really have to call him weird. To be honest, that's probably what I would have done in the situation. But that still doesn't make it okay, I'm not a good example. What these guys probably should have done was leave, or at the very least, just don't insult the guy. Yeah, he's being extremely weird, but you don't have to tell him that to his face. That's not very nice. And on top of that, it's just gonna escalate things. So the kid pretending to be Jeffy, we're gonna name him Jesse for this story. Now, I guess that Jesse doesn't really like being called weird too much, wasn't really on his list of compliments he likes, because he says to them, "You said Jeffy's a bad boy?" in a very, whiny voice, and starts hitting his head on the wall of the play structure. Apparently, this is something that Jeffy does sometimes in the SML videos when someone gets mad at him. It's been, really, 6 years or something since I've watched Super Mario Logan, But that's what the subscriber's saying, so like I'm gonna trust him on that. Anyway, so while Jesse did have a helmet on, it's still not a very smart idea to start hitting your head for no reason. And I guess that the three friends noticed that because they go up to the top of the play structure to try and prevent him from giving himself a concussion. They get up there and they're like, yo, dude, stop, like, don't hit your head. Why are you doing that? And surprisingly, Jesse actually stops hitting his head when they tell him to, which, you know, like, that's good. And he responds to them saying, I don't even know. Apparently, this was another Jeffy quote, and all of these Jeffy quotes were really starting to annoy the three friends, in particular Bill, who already got mad before. And Bill decides to tell Jesse to stop frickin' quoting Jeffy, you weirdo. Except, he didn't say frickin'. He said a certain other word that I don't really know if I'm allowed to say here. Now, I don't really feel like that was necessary. Now you're just swearing at this dude for no reason. Thankfully, Matt and Will seem to agree with me here because they look at Bill and say to him, like, whoa, dude, like, you didn't have to say that. You know, trying to talk some sense into him. But Bill tries to argue back, saying how, like, it wasn't even that rude, and it was just really annoying that Jesse kept quoting Jeffy. Which, I mean, like, yeah, it's annoying, but, like, not a reason to be a jerk to him. And while they're arguing, Jesse, I kid you not, starts smacking his, lower front, if you get what I'm putting down. And when they hear what Jesse's doing, Matt and Will stop arguing with Bill, and all three of them just start staring at this kid who's just keeps smacking himself. First of all, like, you know, like, just don't smack yourself in your lower front. Like, it's not smart. You're gonna cause yourself a lot of pain. Could even be dangerous. Like, just don't do it. Yeah, all the stuff is still extremely weird. Like, if I went to a park and a kid was pretending to be Jeffy, starts hitting his head, smacking his lower front, I'm like, nope, I'm out of there, because that stuff is just, you know, like, it's pretty weird. And also, another question I have is, where are this kid's parents, man? Like, apparently this kid looked to be around like 10 years old or something like that. Like, maybe he lived close to the park, like I live right next to a park myself. But, you know, it is pretty weird that there's no parent supervision. Maybe he snuck out of the house. I don't know. But yeah, it is pretty weird that there are no parents around. Anyways, when Jesse sees that all three of them are just staring at him in shock, he does what can only be described as just like flat out weird. He starts like making these noises at them. So I'm like, ooh, 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 ooh. And honestly, at this point, it would be pretty justifiable to call this kid weird. I feel like out of any part of this whole encounter, this would definitely be the time when you call Jesse weird. But instead of calling him weird again, the three friends realize that playing soccer at the park, it's not quite worth being exposed to this whole situation, being exposed to this wannabe Jeffy, because Matt tells Bill and Will, yo guys, this situation is getting really weird. I personally think we should just leave and maybe play soccer another day. Bill and Will agree with them, so they kind of just like, you know, dip out of there and bike home immediately. They haven't seen that kid since, but they still think it was like a super weird experience. So yeah, thank you to the subscribers for sending this in. I really appreciate it. Anyways, if you want to listen to another entertaining story time just like this, on screen right now is the story of a spoiled kid who tried to steal some guy's dog.